This little cube from Merge is changing education. We're going to hear about how it's how you use a augmented reality with this cube to improve education. And away we go. Who are you?
Hey, I'm Andrew Trickett. I'm one of the co-founders of, formerly in the company is Merge Labs Inc., but our brand name in education is Merge EDU.
Yeah. Well, I love my cube.
Yep.
I use it all the time with an iPad, and I can augment this thing and get all sorts of augmented things around it, a solar system or all sorts of stuff. Yeah. So yeah, what it's been a while. You know, I saw you guys, I don't know, 10 years ago at South by Southwest, where I first saw the idea for the cube. And
yeah, it's been an interesting ride. You know, Robert, as you know, we were, first of all, you know how it works, you know, for your audience is that you're holding the Merge cube and you're running apps on compatible devices, and the cube serves as a multi-target, you know, marker for the augmented reality. Yeah. So it creates this effect that you're having a handheld experience, right, with the content. Which is, you know, as far as we know, you're very unique in spatial computing, you know, because I always said VR is great. There's a lot of things that are pretty awesome, but one of the missing elements, I think, in spatial computing is just a satisfying sense of holding something, right? Yeah. Touching something, and this is how we solve it. It's pretty unique. But when we started out, as you well know, we were kind of focused on what I would call edutainment, you know, selling it to consumers with lots of different sort of fun things, you know, educational, you know, at a minimum, always appropriate for kids. That's something we always kind of had going for us. And then we kind of shifted over to a focus on the education market. So with that technical platform, we added a bunch of Merge created content for, you know, educational purposes, primarily for science and STEM subjects. That's how it's used now. And yeah, where we're today, I'm not sure exactly what the latest news we gave you, but we sold over 1 million cubes. So people ask me, how many schools you're in? It's like, I don't know, but probably all of them. You know, in the US.
A lot of them at the better schools with better teachers.
Well, you know, even you'd be surprised, a lot of Title I schools are even buying now the subscription licenses from us to, you know, kind of teach science and STEM. It's a lot of library programs, after school programs. And now we've sold licenses into 40 some countries around the world. So it's been a pretty wild ride since, you know, our earliest days.
Yeah, it's a unique controller, because as you turn it, you know, you could have a dissected frog here or a solar system. Or tell me about some of the cool stuff you've seen teachers do with this.
Man, it's fantastic. You know, at this point, we have now created, I'm going to separate out into like the Merge created content and the user created content, because I think you guys are going to be really psyched about that. And that's also where we're focused. But as far as the Merge created content, it's over 1,000 pieces of content. Just some of the examples, yeah, you can hold a frog and dissect and explode out the parts. Hold some of my favorite ones, you're holding the solar system in your hand. You can kind of zoom in and out of planets. Another one I really like for middle schoolers is you're holding the cube and bugs are crawling all over it, and you pick two, you hit the breed button, they kind of come together, give a very family-friendly, appropriate kiss, and their offspring walks away. So you learn about inheritance of traits in a really kind of fun way. Another really popular one is that for the older kids, we have very photorealistic anatomy. And so, but it's not just kind of zooming in on the different body systems, but when you go into, say, the circulatory system, press on the heart, it'll explode out. You're holding a beating heart in your hand. And, you know, in addition just to the novelty value of it, you know, Robert, is, you know, how the teachers use it and what it kind of brings to the table that's unique is that you can really explore the spatial relationships, right, between all the different parts of the heart. And there's just things that you notice that you don't notice if you're just kind of scrolling around, you know, on a screen. And, you know, your brain operates in a different way when you're holding it, you know, because you have your brain goes into inspection mode. And actually the woman who cuts my hair told me this. I was like, oh, I'm going to use that in sales cycles, that you have a sense of ownership over something you're holding in your hand, right? It's not kind of a passive visual experience, but it's now multi-sensory. And, you know, the more senses you involve in educational experience, the more impactful and memorable it is. But, you know, the other side of, so there's all the content that we created, but it's used like after school STEM programs, teaching science, even, you know, somewhat for literacy. A libraries like it, for literacy. But the other element, and this is where we're kind of focused right now, Robert, because it's been a little while since we talked, is enabling more and more of the visualization of your own content that you've created on this platform. So, for example, your audience probably knows Minecraft. There's an edition called Minecraft EDU, and that works really well, for visualizing your creation. Like, hey, what do I think? Because again, you just notice things you don't notice when you're able to grab it and look at it, from all angles. Another really, matter of fact, the more dominant tool that we've seen in, say, at least US K-12 is something called Tinkercad. I think it's made by, is it Autodesk? One of the high-end, CAD systems. They have this free tool called Tinkercad. Really fun to play with, and I like it because it has both a very flat learning curve to just get in there and create something basic, but you can do more complicated things if you want to learn it. But because it's free, it's really popular in K-12, and they've actually built in an integration where whatever you create in Tinkercad can go straight to your Merge EDU account without even needing to download it and then re-upload it in our system. But for some of the other tools, we're fairly agnostic, as far as what you use to create it. We've seen Blender, we've seen SolidWorks, we've seen what's the other, Fusion 360, or just going and grabbing something off of some of the stores that are out there. But we've been kind of doing more and more of that. And where we're focused right now is, you can already upload things and add your own labels, to it, which is really cool. And in the release that's coming out like any day now is where those can be multimedia labels, not just text labels. So video files, audio files, picture files. So, that's where we're at right now, or, about to be. Another one that is already out there, if you have an iOS device, a reasonably modern iOS device, is a photogrammetry tool. It's an app called Merge Scanner, and anyone can go out there and use it. And we've gotten really good feedback as far as it being, first of all, it's very low cost, but it works really well. That you can scan a real world object, photogrammetry, and it uploads the 3D digital model that, again, in our platform you can hold in your hand. And we've seen where in education, how are they using all of that? I would say two things. One is creating your own virtual museum of, say, hey, these are objects in my house or objects in my classroom, because you can also add this little pedestal effect, which is really cool for a virtual museum. The other one is just your classic project-based learning, in STEM programs, where they're really it facilitates the whole engineering and design process, because the better you can visualize it, you just kind of catch things, and you can just run through more cycles because it's a virtual object. So if you think about the stages of where the teammates are collaborating on what do we want to create, sending it to the teacher to get feedback, like, that's not at all what I told you to build, or if it's going to a 3D printer, and this is really popular in 3D printing programs, because you want to get something down tight before you send it to the printer, right? Because even something like the size of a whistle takes the entire class period to print, right? So you want to get it right. And so the teacher can give you feedback, like, here's the classic one, is they're creating a little human, but the arm's sticking out way too far, and it's going to fall off during the print. And she'll say, hey, you need to shorten that, or put a support underneath the wrist or something. And then, you can actually take these final outputs and share them with anyone in the world. And we have a free version of the object, the app that you would visualize it with. Right now it's called Merge Object Viewer. It's going to be called Merge Creator. Actually, you would create in Creator, and then still view it in Object Viewer. So you can send it out to anyone in the world to view it, which is really cool, because everything has unique object code. And
you have a whole community of people sharing these kinds of things with each other. That's one reason the teachers like it. There's a lot of things to download that other people have created for their classrooms, and you can upload, if some of your students do something really cool with it, you can upload that to the community, right?
Yeah, and what's really interesting, Robert, I mean, as a company, we're focused, on K-12 specifically, education, but where we've seen others use it, because this is really cool, is in higher ed. It's one of the Harvard Smithsonian affiliated group, and every year they do annual presentations of their galaxy cluster models, and they give people cubes so you can visualize it, because again, it really helps explore the spatial relationships of, you know, intergalactic structures. Another really cool case study was, I want to make sure I get this, I think it's University of California, San Francisco Medical School.
Yeah.
That there was another team that built some really sophisticated anatomy models, and they did a side-by-side test of the traditional method of preparing for an anatomy exam, which is cadavers, and not to be gruesome, but you know, you can't take the cadavers home, you know, to study,
No.
versus, you know, with the merged cube.
And not every school has a cadaver. I actually worked on a cadaver in college, right? They're not everyday things that you have. You have to store them properly. You have to have a room for that. You have to have formaldehyde on it, right? And so it's not something that every kid has access to. But hey, you can download one.
You can take that home. You know, we enable take home, you know, taking things home to study. We've seen also in the so that was higher.
And also, it's a little gross. You know, a lot of kids get squeamish around the
You
cadaver.
don't want to take the cadaver home, even if you're allowed to.
I don't think you would want to. If
exactly.
You know, first of all, it's probably 100 pounds.
What else has been really cool is we've had corporate, you know, and government kind of use it for adult learning. And other purposes, like you know, they're secretive about it. I'm not allowed to say who, but one of the major medical device companies uses it as a visualization tool for prototypes that they can take out into the field and get feedback, you know, from physicians and surgeons. They also use it during the product development process internally, and we've had a couple of fun situations where they use it for, I'm going to call it swag, you know, PR marketing tools. Like there was a high-end watchmaker that used it to kind of visualize and take out in the field. You know, you could hold like these really expensive watches, you know, people could take them home, you know, sort of thing, to visualize, see what they wanted to buy. So it's got a lot of different use cases that we've seen it for, even though we're focused on K-12, and we kind of, you know, see that.
Well, you know, your company's a smart one. I mean, when I first met you guys, I don't know, 12 years ago, it was a long time ago, you know. We were talking about a world where everybody would have a pair of glasses on, right? Well, that world hasn't arrived yet, and you found a market for doing augmented reality with educators with a very low cost cube, and it's real well designed, by the way. It's soft. You can throw it at a kid, not hurt it. You hurt them. You know?
They're very durable too, which is important. Really important.
Oh yeah, I keep it on my desk and play with it a lot. You know, squeeze it.
You know, Robert, since you mentioned that, you know, the other thing that, you know, not surprising in education is it wasn't really until like all the COVID stimulus money, until there were even one-to-one device programs, you know, in the schools. And, you know, they usually buy Chromebooks, you know, because they're, you know, cheaper. But, you know, we see some iPads, we see some Windows. But the point being, we're a very, very long ways away from the time when, you know, VR headsets or, you know, MR headsets are affordable enough that you might actually buy one for every kid in the school. And so until then, we've got something that's working on the devices that they already own, you know, whether it's the iPads. As far as we know, it's the only augmented reality that runs on Chromebooks. So that's really cool. And that's the dominant device, you know.
Oh yeah, my kid's high school is all Chromebook, right? You know,
and it tends to be the older the kid, the more likely it's going to be that it's a Chromebook. But we still see a lot of iPads out there, you know, Windows laptops to some degree, but being able to run on those devices, it makes it more affordable versus asking them to buy a specialized device just to do this and maybe a couple of other things. As much as I look forward to that world, to be clear.
And on Chromebooks, it's a good example of why you need something like this, because you can't touch the screen on most of those Chromebooks. You can't spin something around or zoom it in with your fingers, and you can't engage the kids, right? You know, getting the kids excited about, you know, studying the solar system or a chemical molecule or a, you know, physics problem is really hard. You give them this and you give them augmented reality on the screen, all of a sudden they're a lot more engaged, right?
Yeah, and you know, it's been really interesting. We've done some case studies, you know, recently and over the last couple of years that, yeah, you're absolutely right. And that's usually the number one word that they use is engaged. And the teachers love it too, by the way. And beyond the intellectual, we've heard some really heartwarming stories on the emotional side that they'll say, hey, kids that were withdrawn and kept to themselves kind of blossom and become leaders. And I don't want to say, hey, you know, this was a miracle device. I don't want to paint it that way. But, you know, during the experience, it really kind of draws them out as this wow factor that they enjoy, and they come into the classroom saying, hey, do we get to work with the merge cube today, right? They really jump in and enjoy the learning, not just do it because they're required to do it, by their teacher. And that's really satisfying.
I like that it teaches them computer vision too, because each
Yeah.
side of the cube has a unique pattern on it, right?
Yeah.
And the camera can see that unique pattern and augment it and put virtuality on it. It's really cool.
Yeah.
Even, I mean, I dream about the world where we do all have Vision Pro kind of things, probably a lightweight pair of glasses. I mean, that world is still 3 to 10 years away, really.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Before glasses get small enough and capable enough, because the waveguides today that make the new glasses are just, they're right now, the ones on the market in the lightweight style are green and black displays. They're not really engaging for a kid, and like you said, they're way too expensive to put on a child.
Yeah, I agree with you on the time frame of like when they might become widely used, widely dispersed.
Yeah, but we've been waiting 12 years already.
Oh, yeah,
we thought this was going to come a lot faster than it has.
Yeah, exactly. What I would say is I agree with your time frame for the consumer market, what you might buy for yourself, but in terms of like what would a school buy for their kids, it's even further away, right? Because the price point has to be, even lower, and there has to be
a few $100s like a Chromebook, and even then, glasses are very personalized to people, right? Yep. I have to have corrective lenses to use glasses, where I can pick up any kid's Chromebook and go to town, right? Because I already have the corrective lenses. You have corrective lenses on your eyes too, right? Yep. And so it's a tough road for education to get to the glasses world. I agree with you. Even if they became small and capable and cheap, and that's still 10 years away.
I would say it would need to be under $50 per unit, because a Chromebook can do so much versus the glasses. It's got a more limited set of what it would be used for. So it's tough enough for the district to kind of keep up with the Chromebooks at about $200 per kid. I think the glasses would need to be like under 50.
Yeah, that's a long time away. But anyway, even in the glasses world, having the Vision Pro has 6 cameras on the front of it, so it can see this just fine, right? So when that world does arrive, you guys are going to be ready with a new kind of channel changer, go from CNN to Fox, right? And that's the world I dream about, and I keep looking at this cube going, man, someday this thing is going to be just so useful for the consumer or for a business person to do all sorts of new things. Last night I saw a guy do a new kind of business visualization system for the Vision Pro, right? And it was all 3D, and you really want to spin the chart around.
Yep.
That's what this is for, right?
Yeah, and like I said, you just involve that extra dimension where it's the haptic sense, not just the visual sense, right?
Yeah.
And it just becomes more memorable for that reason.
Yeah. Well, it's a fun world. Have you started thinking about how AI is going to change this world? Because if I have a Chromebook and it's looking at the cube and it's doing something, having a large language model sort of virtualized inside the cube, so I could talk to the cube and say, hey, give me all the planets, give me all the galaxies, give me all the stars, right? And having it understand your voice and be able to change what's on here.
Absolutely. I mean, as we kind of think about the little bit longer term roadmap, when we get past the Merge Creator app being released, that exactly. And I kind of think about it in 2 ways. Or one is using AI to create the content and then upload and visualize on our platform. But then even further, that those creations, you're having a dialogue and a relationship and interaction, right, with content that would almost certainly be done via
I got to hook you up with the founder of Luma Labs. He makes a really amazing photo to video model, right? And you put in a photo and it makes you a whole video out of it. He's building a 3D environment, probably coming next year.
Love it.
But that would be great to have in the Merge Cube, to talk to it and have it create a 3D scene that you spin, or a 3D object that you spin, all from that AI. In other words, this has a future.
Oh, absolutely. Remember, the way that we kind of visualize it or think about it is that if you think about the things that have been digitized, it started off with text, then audio, then video, and now it's 3D content, right?
Yeah.
And it just becomes more and more realistic. And again, not just something that you're looking at, and then we're adding on the haptic element, but now when we start having like a relationship, an ongoing dialogue, sort of interaction with it, that we're excited not only with what we do, what others might build on top
Yeah.
of the platform.
Well, that's why I wanted to check in with you, because I know there's like 5 separate holodecks being built, which are 3D environments around you that you can talk to, that can create things. Right? Hey, put a purple tree over there. Yeah, I can do that kind of thing. And we're starting to see tastes of that evolving in the community right now. I mean, the picture to video models are getting pretty good. Next step is video to 3D environments. That's great for a high-end person. Are you guys always going to be focused on education, or as this market evolves over the next few years, are you going to start broadening out again? Because this is such a great controller for somebody who has a pair of glasses on or is working in a 3D environment, right?
Yeah, absolutely. In terms of like which direction, remains to be seen. I think some of it will be, hey, who's showing interest in us, right?
Yeah.
But if you think about some of the different dimensions, it would, might be, could be consumer and kind of general, platforms, metaverse, holodeck, sort of interaction. I think it's maybe more likely that something that still involves an educational element like adult training. What a lot of people have told us is, with the handheld element, it's like maybe you aren't going to have like these super sophisticated dissection sort of models, but being able to explode it out and really explore it for basic training, kind of the front end training. We've probably had every branch of the military approach us, and it's not like you're going to train someone how to fly an F-35 necessarily, but more like if you're going to be a mechanic, that learning, hey, what does a landing assembly look like? What does the cockpit assembly look like? Et cetera. That just being able to explore that on the front end of the training has a lot of value. And what is also maybe not known is on, with adult training, it's very much a pipeline of like people who kind of start out at the front end, and who you end up with actually being aircraft mechanics. There's a lot of pipeline that you have to manage through. It's a pretty low ratio, who ends up on the other end of that pipeline. So the value of that in a low cost, but still impactful platform. So I could see us heading in that direction. We've had quite a few museums approach us, and not only because it's handheld, which is cool, but what I didn't know until we started talking with it, that most museums, what you see out in front, as a visitor, 90% of the stuff is in the back rooms that you never see, right? And this makes it available, as a virtual museum. But again, things you can kind of explore and have a different experience than a museum is going to let you do, right, with the real world physical objects.
No, that's a big deal. I went to the National Archives, and up front they have the most important documents in the United States, right? Our Bill of Rights or Declaration of Independence. But behind that is a huge warehouse with 6 million photos. Most people never get in there, don't even know it exists. And so if there's ways to bring that kind of thing back out to you, it's really good. Even if you go to the Air and Space Museum, which is cool place to go, right? They have 2 of them. There's a second one if you're in downtown Washington, D.C., which was where most of the visitors go. There's a second one a few miles away that's even bigger and has a spatial, and it has an SR-71 Blackbird from Lockheed, right? It's a really cool museum, another museum, but how do you give a visitor a little taste of that other place or that other kind of thing, right?
And how often are you going to go there in your lifetimes versus if it's available to you at home? Right.
Not many. I mean, but most people can only travel there, once or twice a year, a lifetime, really, right? Most people don't get to travel that much.
Absolutely. Particularly, disadvantaged, communities. Like this might be the only way that they might ever see these wonderful things.
I think this is, ChatGPT. I was walking around the Smithsonian, which the Air and Space is a Smithsonian place too. You take a picture of anything in that Air and Space Museum and send it to ChatGPT or any large language model based system that's multimodal. ChatGPT was the one I chose. It knows everything in the museum, everything. Like the tractor in the back of the hall, it knew that. The jet engines at Air and Space Museum, it knew that. I went to, and it does this for every museum in the world,
Yeah.
right? And so now you start thinking about having an AI in this thing, and you can say, hey, show me a John Deere tractor. Boom. Right? And it can appear on the cube, and
Yeah.
you're spinning around a John Deere tractor, right?
You can ask questions about it and get answers back. Yeah.
Bingo. I think you guys are gonna use AI in some unique way in the next few years to really make this thing a thing that you can talk to, touch, move. By the way, it can tell distances from the camera, right?
Yeah. I mean, the sensation that we've created is that you're holding a hologram, if you will, in your hand. I mean, when you rotate it, for instance, what may be deceptive looks like a very simple object because there's no moving parts, there's no electronics in it.
Yeah.
But it's actually millimeter level precision, because the key to having that illusion of holding the content is that, for instance, when you rotate it, that it's smooth, it's not juddering on you. When you push it away, it gets smaller. When you bring it toward you, it's larger. Because if you were actually holding a hologram in your hand, that's how it would operate, right? That's what the experience would be like. So
where I was going with this is because it can tell distance from the camera. I mean, you can see that on the camera. This is close, this is far, right? You can actually slice through something, right? And like a cadaver, right? And show a slice, a slicing through a cadaver, or spin it, right?
Exploding things out. That's another kind of effect that we've created.
It's a really interesting. I mean, it still is a fascinating business idea to make a cube like this with augmented reality, with cameras, to join it all together to make something really, really beautiful and useful,
Yeah.
And as a controller, what's that?
I'll give you another idea, which can involve AI, but doesn't always have to, is e-commerce, right? This could be a way that you could explore a product that you're considering buying. I gave the example.
A group of products, right?
Yeah, a group of product, like watch. Yeah, exactly. Kind of, hey, here's some different watches. Here's some different shoes. Here's some different, electronic, products, things like that, and just be able to kind of explore it. Say, is this what I want? And we've been surprised, like that luxury watchmaker, how fine the detail was on it, and being able to explore. Like you could really get a sense, like, what would this actually look like if I bought this, and explore from a lot of different angles. So it's pretty cool. So that could be another direction that we head in.
Yeah, it's you start thinking of where our cameras coming. Last year at the Display Week show, I saw these new light field TVs, which have a camera. They actually look for your eyes, and they reorient the 3D on your eyes. It's pretty cool stuff. And they're 16K. They're beautiful. Those are probably coming in 2027, 2028. If you could get access to the camera, now you have a channel changer, right in front of your TV.
Oh, I like that.
But that's off there in the future, this is a really great idea. What else is going on in terms of the business? And, this is probably, now you have school teachers using them, and people are getting on board, and it's probably selling pretty well.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, at this point, we're in with the cubes themselves. We're probably in every school district, in the United States. If not literally every one of them. Anyone that has a population of more than 500 kids, probably has these. And what's also been really interesting to see is that just the inbound interest from outside the USA.
By the way, you can buy these at retail stores for like $20, right, or something like that.
They're on Amazon, for $30 now.
$30.
But you also get a 3-month trial subscription, for all the goodness and the merge created goodness with that. What we're also seeing is the homeschooler market, starting to pick up, and with, I'll just say, the changes that are occurring recently, that more and more dollars are probably going to go to that, of families kind of running things from home or going to different schools. So we're also kind of exploring, how do we, from a marketing and sales standpoint, how do we get out to those folks? Because if you kind of really look at what we've done and what's in it for a homeschooler, and by the way, one of our largest customers is a charter school family where nearly all the kids are learning from home. And what we make available that would otherwise not be available is teaching aids. Like when when I was a kid, we had like the plasticized anatomy kits and the solar system kits and the DNA, models and things like that. Is, if you look at what we've done, is we've digitized over 1,000 of those. And even for a public school district, we went shopping for everything that we digitized. If you bought the physical version, we stopped counting at $10,000, right?
Yeah.
And so if you think about even a public school district trying to buy one of those for every student, it's financially inconceivable. For homeschoolers, like, how are you going to do that? You're not going to go buy $10,000 worth of kit. Forget there, most families could, but we enable that, with the digital version. And also you're able to just have interactions that are not possible with a physical version, right? Because our dinosaurs are animated, so you can take the T-Rex and place them in your front yard, make them 40 feet high, next to the Stegosaurus.
Everybody needs a T-Rex in their front yard. I have one in the backyard.
Yeah, scare off the burglars, right?
I don't know about that, but it's entertaining for the kids to go out with an iPad and go look at it,
so so kind of doing more and more of that with, just making it aware, to the homeschoolers that this is available for your kids, something that otherwise would not be available to them at all. So, that's been really gratifying. And like I said, seeing some of these other market segments that we're not pursuing coming into us as they learn.
I didn't think about reducing the cost for the classroom in terms of buying all these visual aids that teachers used to have to buy. They used to have to buy a lot more films and stuff like that than they do today. It's really an interesting idea. Who knew that a little cube could do so much?
It's like anything else when you invent something, bring out to market. It's not only what do we do it, but what we've seen others do with it just blows our minds. I'll give you one of my favorite examples. Is even though we focus on science and STEM, there's this very innovative teacher at a private school in Cairo, Egypt. And what she does, she's a English language arts teacher. It's an international school. So, the older kids, might read a fairy tale. The older kids, younger kids, fairy tale, older kids, it's Shakespearean novel. What she has them do, she's a huge fan of this, that after you've read that piece of literature, I'm trying to remember the tool, might be Tinkercad, might be something else, to recreate your favorite scene. And, visualize it for yourself and then share that creation with the other students. So it's a way of kind of like really turning what would otherwise just be a reading experience into now a multi-sensory experience that you can share with others. So we gotta hook you up with Luma, because they're able to prompt a Shakespeare Macbeth scene to the prompt, and it builds it for you as a video. Right now, a video isn't a 3D thing, but they're coming out with 3D over the next year. So having a ability to talk to the cube and have it be able to generate a 3D Shakespeare scene or a Bible scene or whatever would be really interesting on this. Absolutely. And Robert, you may not know this, but we very recently announced we were bringing out, we call it the Mega Merge Cube. So it's this guy only 17 inches on each side, and we had it. It's being made by one of the top, suppliers to like school libraries, furniture, and I think it's rated for 300 pounds. And what's awesome about it, it's not just a giant cube, but what we're seeing is people have a collaboration with it, because everyone can have their own experience with that same cube, but it's ginormous and they're all sharing the same experience. So it's really, really cool, and it's proved very popular for community engagement events, like the PTA events, or the family nights and things like that, which is just great. So the parents can kind of say, hey, what are the kids experiencing? And always kind of say that, with
great for museums too, like you said.
Absolutely.
Have a few places sit down and then aim a camera and boom, you got a new thing of art there.
Rated for flexible seating is what the schools call it. So that's a really fun one that we brought out as well.
How much does that cost?
It's more than just a novelty, right? It just kind of serves these extra types of interactions and experiences with it.
How much does that cost?
It's right now $500 each, inclusive of shipping in the continental U.S.
I should get one for my little studio here.
Make that happen.
Cool Amazon chairs.
It's a cool, funky pattern too, right?
And it can augment anything with a camera. It can augment it, right? And we're talking on a camera right now, so it's awesome. It's great talking with you, and seeing what's going on in the classroom, and seeing what's going on with augmented reality and computer vision. The future is still out there for us. With it's I want a full holodeck. I don't know about you, but that's why I have this Vision Pro. I'm dreaming of that world of getting people into a full 3D environment that you talk to with AI. And that's still a little bit out there. So
I think it's a ways out there, and just kind of future tech.
We're stuck on Chromebooks. We're stuck on Chromebooks.
Here's the other thing that I'll say, Robert, is that within of the things that are already out there right now, if you think about controllers and beyond visual inputs into like haptic inputs, I think controllers are absolutely fantastic for swinging motions. Like Fruit Ninja and things like that, Beat Saber. I think they're pretty good, at pointing, but where we're still not as a satisfying sense of holding and touching an object, and that's what this does. Now, I think haptic gloves, may be the ultimate, solution to that, but I think that's even further out. Let's say affordable haptic gloves that work really, really well, I think are even further out. But until then, there's a very affordable way of kind of providing that experience.
And they're probably a little bit delicate, if you're taking them into an education environment, that they have to put up with a lot of abuse, people throwing them around.
Intentional and inadvertent abuse, I'll say.
Yeah. People sitting on them, spilling drinks on them, stuff like that, right?
So pens, things like that.
That's why the future's out there for education. But this is a very powerful thing that it holds something. Suzanne Borders, who runs Bad VR Company, which is a funny name, she built her own controllers because she found the human touch is so important to the sense of virtuality. And here we're trying to use a cheap Chromebook to do something magical. Having a thing in your hand really does matter, right?
Yep. Absolutely.
That's why I'm happy to have one, and I'm happy to support you guys. It's awesome.
Thanks so much, Robert.
Check it in. I'll check in with you in a couple more years and see how the holodeck.
Let's try to make it a little more often than that. But it's always good talking with you.
Well, I have a feeling you're going to put a large language model in this, and then be able to have the kid talk to the Chromebook and say, "Hey, change this, the solar system to." Just bigger planets, or zoom it in, hey merge cube, zoom in, and being able to use your voice with the cube is going to be I think it's going to be a big deal for you guys.
Not only with the content that we created, but what we're really excited about is see what the users will create, right? For crowdsourcing the imagination of what do I even want to interact with, education and beyond education.
And certainly I'm going to hook you up with Luma, because I'm dreaming now of the world of talking to the cube, having Luma generate 3D shit, 3D things on the cube, whether it's an object or a scene, and then be able to spin the scene, hey, show me Jerusalem, because it can do stuff like that, right? Luma can, right? It just right now it's slow and expensive. But you're going to see the costs on that AI generation go down and down. So 3 years from now, I think you're in a different world. It'll be interesting to check back in with you.
And the whole device landscape, right, gets better and better as the GPUs get better, the cameras get better. It just enables all.
Yeah, but schools are going to be stuck with cheap, fast Chromebooks for a while. So.
Well, hopefully they upgrade, and so the components just get a little better with each cycle.
Universities will have better machines with high-end NVIDIA cards and stuff like that. But that's not the biggest market you're aiming at, right? You're aiming at education, K-12 education, and trying to get kids excited about STEM. So that's why I love you guys. Where do we learn more about Merge?
mergeedu.com is our homepage.
Edu.com. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Robert. Always a pleasure.
Awesome.
Cheers.